All right, hi everybody. So today we're going to be looking at our final lesson for Unit 1, the distributive property. So algebra, the distributive property. So distributive, that's going to be a word that we're going to need to figure out and see what that means. And if you look at the word distributive, it sounds like distribute. And if you know what distribute means, that means to pass out or to give out. So that's what we're going to be doing. We are going to be passing numbers out and multiplying. Today's big concept is it's actually a very short lesson, but there's going to be a lot of multiplication. Okay, so today is going to be a day full of multiplication, so we're going to want to make sure that we are on our multiplication facts. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Today's main idea. I will use the distributive property in equations and expressions. So we're going to be distributing numbers to make multiplication a little bit easier, all under the idea that we're using algebra. So we're going to have variables in there that are going to be important to know. Okay, so let's go ahead and write down our first key concept. So like before, you can go ahead and write this down, and then when you're done, or you can pause it, and then when you're done, you can continue playing. Let's go over the concept first, and then I'll give you a moment to write it down. So today's key concept for the distributive property: to multiply a sum by a number, multiply each add-in of the sum by the number outside of the parentheses. So what you see here is we're really looking at 2 parentheses 7 plus 4. Okay, so what you're going to do is you are going to distribute this 2 to the two different numbers. You're going to distribute it to the 7, and you're going to distribute it to the 4. Okay, and that's what you're going to do. So what that turns into is you have a problem: 2 times 7 plus 2 times 4. Okay, these problems, when you have smaller problems like this, these are a little bit easier to figure out in your head. Now you're going to say, Mr. Williams, couldn't I have just done this? Aren't I supposed to do the parentheses and then you do the multiplication? Yeah, that's the PEMDAS. But in this case, it's going to be a little easier to do the distributive method, because you're going to have smaller numbers that you can figure out in your head. Sometimes when you start adding these two things up and then you multiply them outside, that number can get very large. Now this example, 7 plus 4, 11, we know that 11 times 2 is going to be 22. This is a small number, but as the numbers get larger, they're much harder to figure out. So it's easier to use the distributive method. You can continue using PEMDAS, that's totally fine. I have no problem with you doing that. This is just another option. Okay, so then you would just figure it out like normal. You have 14 plus 8. And if you do 14 plus 8, you should get 22. Okay, so it does work. In this case, it's smaller numbers, so it's a little bit easier. The larger you get, though, the harder they can become. Go ahead, take a second, write that down, press pause, and then when you're ready, go ahead and click play. Oops. All right, so here's our first example: 7 times 84. So this is where I'm talking about it gets harder. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 7 and I'm going to multiply this by So I'm going to take my 7 and I'm going to multiply that by 80, okay, because I have an 84. And then I'm going to put a parentheses around that. And then I'm going to add this to 7 times 4. Okay, so if I look, I see, okay, 80 and 4, if I add those two together, I get 84. So that's what I'm looking for, 80 and 4. So now I'm going to take 7 times 80, and I know that 7 times 8 is 56. Then I can add a 0, and I get 560. I add the 0 because there's a 1 0 there. Then I have 7 times 4 is 28. I then add those two together, and I get 588. So the answer to this problem using mental math is 588. Now, even though it's mental math, this is what I want to see you write down. Okay, I want to see this portion. How you solve this 7 times 80, you can do that in your head, is fine. Now, when it says mental math, do you have to do it mentally? No. If you need to take some time and you need to write it down, that's totally fine. I do that all the time. Okay? I'm not expecting you to have all of this stuff memorized. Not at all. But I'm expecting you to have the idea memorized. Okay? So, again, I took the 84 and I split it to 80 and 4. Okay? Multiplied both by 7. This is the distributive property. I'm taking the 7 and distributing it to both problems. 7 times 80, the way I solved that was I took the 7 and the 8. 7 times 8 is 56, and I added a 0. Then 7 times 4, I know that is 28, so I then took 560 plus 28 and got 588. All right, let's take a look at another problem. Suppose it costs students $3 to bowl a game and $2 to rent shoes. What is the cost for students? Okay, so I have 25 students that I'm worrying about here. So 25 students are paying $3 and 25 students are paying $2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 25 and I'm going to distribute that to the 3. And I'm going to take this 25 and I'm going to distribute it to the 2. Okay? And again, these are dollars. I'm going to put the dollar sign in there. Put those parentheses around them, and I'm going to add those outcomes together. Okay? So now, 25 times 3, might not be able to do that in your head, but if you think of it like quarters, 3 quarters is 75. And that's dollars. And then 25 times 2, or 2 quarters, would be $50. Again, because we're dealing with money, we need to have that dollar sign in there. I'm now going to add these $75 plus $50 is $125. Okay, so again, this is the work that I want to see. I'm not, if you can do this in your head, the 25 times 3, that's the mental part of it, that is fine, but I do want to see this process on your scratch paper. Now, one thing moving forward that I'd like you to do on your scratch paper is I would like you to number your scratch paper, like number 1, and then 1 number per box. Okay? The scratch paper is to help you line things up. Okay, that's what I want to see. So then I know 23 times 5 is 75, and we put our dollar sign in there. Okay, so make sure on your scratch paper you're lining everything up. I don't need to see boxes around anything as long as you number them. That's all I want to see. Okay, we need to be a little bit neater on our scratch paper. That way I can see if you're having some problems. Okay, so that should be the end. Yep, that's the end for today. Let's take a peek at our homework today, what you're going to be working on this afternoon. Okay, so here we go, the distributive property. We have 10 times 41, for example, for the first one. So what you can do is, I'm going to kind of do this one over here, is I'm going to take this 10 and I'm going to distribute it to the 40. And I'm going to take the 10 and I'm going to distribute it to the 1. Okay, I'm going to put my parentheses around that. Follow this same formula for each problem. 10 times 40 is 400, plus 10 times 1, 10. So then I know that my answer is 410. Okay, you can follow that same process for all of these problems. As before, guys, if you have any questions, please make sure you come and ask. I don't want you to feel like, I don't get it, I'm not going to get help. Just come and ask. I'm more than happy to help out. I want to make sure you guys understand this. This is our last lesson for this unit, so there is a test coming up, so I want you to make sure that you are ready for that. Alright guys, so like I said, if you have any questions, please let me know, and yeah, there you go.